The days passed slowly, but Adam's presence became harder and harder to resist. Naomi kept telling herself this was temporary, that any day now, she'd finally send him away, but every time she tried, he did something that made her hesitate. Like the night he found her sitting on the couch, rubbing her lower back with a wince. "You shouldn't strain yourself so much," Adam said gently as he walked into the living room, a warm towel in his hands. "I'm fine," Naomi muttered, but the ache in her back said otherwise. "Let me help," he said softly, his voice so patient it made her defenses falter. Before she could protest, he was already kneeling on the floor in front of her. "Turn around." She sighed but did as he asked, too tired to argue. The moment his hands pressed into her lower back, she nearly melted. His touch was firm but careful, working through the tension she hadn't even realized had built up. Why are you so good at this?" she murmured, her eyes fluttering shut. "You're really committed to this whole housekeeper act, huh?" He didn't respond right away, his fingers moving up her spine in slow, soothing circles. "I just want to take care of you," he said after a while, his voice quiet. "Both of you." The words made her chest tighten, but she said nothing, because if she did, she wasn't sure she'd be able to keep her walls up. A few days later, Adam insisted they get some fresh air. "You've been cooped up in the house too long," he said as he helped her into a light jacket. "A little walk will do you good." "I can take care of myself," she reminded him for the 100th time. "I know," he replied with an infuriatingly soft smile. "But you don't have to." The park was quiet and peaceful, the cool breeze carrying the scent of flowers. They walked slowly, Adam keeping close but not hovering, though his hand was always ready when she needed support. When they passed a group of children playing, Naomi's hand drifted to her belly without thinking. "Soon, that'll be us," Adam said with a gentle warmth. Naomi glanced at him, her heart skipping. "You sound so sure about that." "I am." His eyes softened as they landed on her bump. "I want to be here, Naomi. For everything." She didn't know how to respond to that. The hospital room was cool and sterile, but the moment their baby's heartbeat filled the air, it felt like everything else faded away. Naomi's breath caught, her eyes watering as the steady thump-thump-thump surrounded them. Beside her, Adam's fingers wrapped around hers, his grip firm and reassuring. When she glanced at him, she saw the same wonder mirrored in his eyes. "That's our baby," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. For the first time, it really felt real, and it scared her how much she wanted this moment to last. Every night, without fail, Adam brought her the little glass of water and the pills she always forgot to take on her own. "Time for your vitamins," he'd say, his tone teasing but gentle. "I can take them myself," she grumbled, even as she accepted the water. "I know," he said, his eyes twinkling, "but I like taking care of you." And the thing is, she was starting to like it too. The shift happened slowly, so slowly that even Naomi didn't realize it at first. One evening when they were sitting on the couch, the soft hum of the TV filling the room, Naomi was picking at a bowl of fruit, her thoughts far away, when Adam's voice broke through her haze. "Naomi," he said softly, watching her with those warm, patient eyes, "I know you're still unsure about me being here, but I just want you to know, you can trust me. I'll do anything for you." That made her pause. She stared at him, trying to figure out if he really meant it. "Anything?" she asked, her voice guarded. "Anything," he repeated without hesitation. And maybe it was the softness in his tone, or the way he always seemed to know when she was tired or hurting without her saying a word, but something inside her cracked just a little. "All right then," she said slowly, a spark of mischief in her eyes. The first test came at 2 a.m. Naomi shuffled into Adam's room without bothering to knock, her face set in a serious pout. "Adam," she said, shaking his shoulder. "Wake up." He blinked at her sleepily. "Is everything okay?" he asked, instantly alert. "No," she said dramatically. "I want pancakes." He stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. But there was a small, fond smile tugging at his lips. "Pancakes. At 2 in the morning. With strawberries," she added. "And whipped cream."
He didn't argue.
He just climbed out of bed, stretched, and headed to the kitchen without another word. Naomi followed him, watching from the counter as he moved around like it was perfectly normal to be making pancakes in the middle of the night. When he finally placed the plate in front of her, topped with perfectly sliced strawberries and a swirl of cream, she took one bite and hummed in satisfaction. Adam just watched her with admiration. Another night, Naomi flopped onto the couch with a dramatic sigh. "I can't sleep," she declared. Adam raised an eyebrow. "Do you want some tea? A warm bath?" "No," she said, grinning. "I want a bedtime story." He blinked at her. "A story?" "Yup." She handed him a book she'd pulled off the shelf and patted the seat beside her. "Come on, make it good." Adam didn't even try to argue. He settled next to her, opened the book, and started reading, his voice calm and steady. Naomi closed her eyes, letting the sound of him wash over her, feeling more comforted than she'd been in a long time. He was barely 10 minutes into the story when she was fast asleep, her head resting on his shoulder. It became routine after that. When her back ached, she didn't even have to ask. Adam would appear with warm towels and those magic hands of his. When she claimed her arms were too tired to lift a fork, he'd roll his eyes with a smirk and feed her, bite by careful bite. One afternoon, she sighed dramatically from the couch. "My head hurts." Adam appeared a second later with gentle fingers and soothing oils, working through the tension until she was practically purring. "You're spoiling me," she murmured sleepily. "Good," he said softly. "You deserve it." The more Naomi leaned on him, the harder it became to remember why she'd been keeping her distance. Adam made it so easy to trust him, to let him take care of her, and a part of her hated how much she liked it. Because she had no idea how long it'd last. But late at night, when she lay in bed with her baby kicking gently inside her, she couldn't help but wonder, was he doing this because he cared for her? Or was it just because of the child? She wanted to believe it was both. But she wasn't ready to take that risk just yet. That night, Naomi padded softly toward Adam's room, ready to disturb him again. Maybe ask for some freshly cut mangoes or another bedtime story. But when she reached the slightly open door, she paused. Adam was sitting at the small desk near the window, the glow from his laptop casting soft shadows on his face. He looked different, focused and serious, his brow furrowed as his fingers moved swiftly over the keyboard. Every now and then, he jotted something down in a notebook beside him, his concentration so intense that he didn't even notice her standing there. For a long moment, Naomi just watched him. This version of him, it reminded her of the powerful CEO she had known, the man who ran Miller Corporation with quiet authority. Curiosity burned in her chest, but she didn't step inside. Instead, she turned away quietly, deciding to let him be. The next morning, when she was in the living room, she spotted Adam's phone lying there on the table, the screen lighting up with a notification. Naomi knew she shouldn't. She really shouldn't. But the temptation was too strong. With a quick glance toward the kitchen, where Adam was humming as he prepared breakfast, she picked up the phone and swiped. Her breath caught when she saw the emails. There were dozens of them. Offers from some of the biggest corporations she'd ever heard of, promising high-level positions, jaw-dropping salaries, and endless benefits. And Adam's responses? A polite but firm, "Thank you for your consideration, but I must decline." Every single
one.
Naomi's heart pounded. Why was he turning all these opportunities down? He wasn't part of the Miller family anymore. He didn't have their wealth or influence. As far as she knew, he was jobless and staying here because he had nowhere else to go. But clearly, that wasn't true. He could walk into any company and start over with ease. He's a well-educated man with an impeccable CV. So why was he here, in her house, enduring her sass and endless demands with so much grace and patience? She put the phone down just as she heard Adam's footsteps approaching. "Breakfast's ready," he called out cheerfully from the kitchen. Naomi stared at the phone for a second longer, her mind racing. She wanted to ask him, to demand answers, but something held her back. Instead, she kept quiet, but the questions stayed. Naomi lounged on the couch, one hand lazily tossing popcorn into her mouth while the other cradled her baby bump. The TV droned in the background, but her mind was elsewhere, mostly on Adam and the thrill of sending him on these little errands. She didn't even remember what she asked him to get this time. Maybe mangoes? Or was it ice cream? It didn't really matter. She just loved the attention and care. She knew it wouldn't last. Once the baby was born, Adam would probably disappear from her life again. That thought made her chest ache a little, but she pushed it aside. For now, she was going to enjoy being spoiled. A sharp knock at the door pulled her out of her thoughts. Naomi frowned. Adam never knocks, he just walks in. Maybe he forgot his keys? Excited to see him, she waddled to the door with a smile, only for it to vanish the second she swung it open. Standing there, with matching scowls, were the last two people she ever wanted to see. Rebecca Miller and her desired daughter-in-law, Stacy. Naomi's eyes narrowed instantly. "Oh, great," she muttered under her breath. Before she could even speak, Rebecca pushed past her into the house like she owned the place, Stacy following right on her heels. "Adam." Rebecca's shrill voice echoed through the house. "Adam, son, where are you?" Naomi raised a brow, completely unfazed. She shut the door and, without a word, turned around and made her way right back to the couch. Stacy stormed through the living room, throwing an annoyed glance Naomi's way. "Where is he?" Naomi shrugged, popping another piece of popcorn into her mouth. "I don't know. Why don't you try yelling louder? Maybe he's hiding under the bed." Rebecca shot her a furious look before continuing her march through the house, opening doors and calling out for her son. Stacy followed behind, their footsteps heavy and impatient. Naomi stayed exactly where she was, legs tucked comfortably under a blanket, snacks in hand. She watched them with mild interest, as if they were a reality show she wasn't particularly invested in. They could stomp and shout all they wanted. She wasn't about to waste her energy on them, not when there was popcorn to eat and a great show to watch. After they failed to find Adam, Rebecca and Stacy started screaming obscenities at her, calling her a whore, a loose woman, a conniving manipulator. They accused her of using Adam, spewing one cruel insult after another. But Naomi remained unfazed, sitting nonchalantly on the couch, munching on her snacks with an air of calm defiance. Every so often, she'd drop a snide remark, her sharp tongue slicing through their fury. She didn't care that these two women could easily overpower her if they wanted. She was done being their doormat. For years, she had endured their venom in silence, but not anymore. Naomi was bold now, fearless, and absolutely unwilling to let them walk all over her again. As the women continued their tirade, sneering at her and belittling her small house, demanding to know where Adam was, Naomi's eyes flicked toward the window. That's when she saw him, Adam, walking toward the house. And suddenly, an idea sparked in her mind. A wild, reckless idea. What better way to test whether Adam was really here for sincere reasons? The next moment, the two women froze in shock as Naomi, who had been sassily composed just seconds ago, suddenly burst into loud, dramatic wails. She clutched her baby bump like she had been wronged in the worst way possible, her cries filling the room. Adam, having spotted the unfamiliar fancy car parked outside, burst into the house with urgency. His eyes immediately landed on Naomi, looking so distressed and miserable. His face went pale with fear. Without a second's hesitation, he dropped everything he was carrying and rushed to her side. "Naomi, what's wrong? Are you hurt? Where does it hurt?" His hands moved over her frantically, checking for injuries, his voice filled with desperation. "Tell me, are you in pain? Please talk to me." But Naomi only cried louder, burying her face in her hands and sobbing as if her heart were breaking. Rebecca and Stacy stood there, their mouths agape. "Adam, why are you talking to her? She's pretending. She's not hurt at all." Rebecca shrieked, her voice rising in frustration. But Naomi only wailed even louder in response, her shoulders shaking. Adam's head snapped up, his eyes blazing with anger. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice cold and commanding. "You need to leave. Immediately." Rebecca's face twisted with disbelief. Adam, I'm your mother, she choked out, her voice breaking. Are you kicking me out? After everything I've done for you? Why are you doing this? But Adam's face remained hard, his body tense with restrained fury. Listen, he said, his voice low and firm. This is not my house, it's Naomi's. And I will not allow you to come here and attack my wife. If you want to talk, we can do it somewhere else, not here. As he stood there, his eyes locked on Rebecca's, his mind flashed back to everything this woman had put him through. She had adopted him when he was just 8 years old, not out of love but because she saw his potential as a tool. And while it was true that he had been given the best education in elite schools and traveled the world, it had all come with a price. When his adoptive grandfather was alive, things had been better. There had been a semblance of care and respect. But after his passing, the full weight of the family's financial responsibilities had fallen squarely on Adam's shoulders. And it had been suffocating. He had spent years struggling to please them, working himself to the bone while they reaped the benefits. He had been controlled, manipulated, and slowly drained, drowning under the pressure of being their provider. But all of that changed the day he found out about his child. For the first time in his life, he saw the chance to have someone truly his own. A family of his own. A child who would call him Daddy and depend on him, not for money, not for power, but for love. And at that moment, the gaslighting, the manipulation, and the guilt Rebecca had used to control him for so long had lost their grip on him. He had walked away from that life without hesitation, and not once had he regretted it. Not for a second. Stacy's voice rose in a desperate shriek. Adam, this woman is a viper. She's taking advantage of you. She's using you. Why can't you see that? Adam's eyes darkened as he glared at her. Am I complaining? He asked coldly. I love being here. His words were calm but firm, and the weight behind them left no room for argument. Rebecca's face twisted with rage. How can you love living in this tiny, dirty house? She spat, her eyes sweeping the room with disdain. It's suffocating in here. Why don't you come back home, where everyone is waiting for you? You have everything there. Naomi's interest piqued at that. She kept her face buried in her hands, her soft sniffles keeping up the act, but inside, she was listening closely. She needed to hear his response. Adam's face remained serious, his expression unreadable. He nodded slowly. So, you really want me to go back? He asked, his tone neutral. Naomi froze. A sudden cold fear gripped her heart pounding so loud she was sure they could hear it. Was this how it would end? Would he leave her after everything? Rebecca's face lit up with excitement, convinced she had finally broken through. Yes, son. We all want you back. Please, I've forgiven you, and everyone's ready to welcome you home with open arms. Come with us, she pleaded, her voice almost sweet. Adam's face remained impassive. Okay, he said slowly. I'll go back. But I have one condition. Naomi's stomach dropped. She held her breath, her hands tightening over her belly. This was it. The moment she'd dreaded. Rebecca, desperate and eager, didn't even hesitate. Anything. I'll do anything to have my son back. Adam's voice was calm, but there was steel in it. My condition is that I'll go back with my wife. And I won't be mandated to work for the company or handle any of the family's affairs. I'll just wait for my share of the profits, like every other family member. We can hire someone else to do the work. The room fell silent. Rebecca's mouth fell open, her face draining of color. She tried to speak, but only a strangled noise came out. Adam didn't wait for a response. His lips curled in a bitter, knowing smile. You don't have to say anything, he said quietly. I already know the truth. You don't want me back because I'm your son. You want me because I'm the one keeping the entire family afloat. You want me back so I can drown myself in work while you all go off on your vacations and live in luxury. He looked Rebecca directly in the eye, his voice soft but cutting. You don't want a son. You want a servant boy you can control. Rebecca's face twisted in horror. She stammered, but there was nothing she could say, no way to deny the truth he'd laid bare. Adam's voice softened, but the finality in his words was unmistakable. I've paid my dues. Thank you for raising me. I'll always be grateful for that. But if you ever want a real relationship with me, it'll have to be without all this manipulation. Until then, I want nothing to do with any of you. Please leave my family alone." The room hung heavy with silence. Rebecca's face reddened with fury. "She's a gold digger," she shrieked suddenly, her composure snapping. "She's only after your money. She doesn't care about you. Can't you see that? You're willing to throw your real family away for her." She pointed a trembling finger at Naomi, who was still quietly observing, trying her best not to smirk. Adam's face hardened. "Don't call her that," he said coldly. "What money is she after?" "I have nothing, and that's by choice. Or did you forget that Grandpa left everything in my name?" Rebecca's face paled even further. "I'm the one who promised to transfer everything back to all of you, and I'm still in the process of doing that. But if I wanted to, I could change my mind. I could keep everything." The threat hung in the air, like a loaded gun. Rebecca's anger shifted into panic. "Lucky for all of you," Adam continued, his voice calm and almost pitying. "I don't care about that money. I've always wanted to earn my way through life with my own hard work. All I want now is to be left alone. I'm never going back. I'm happy here. And you," he stepped toward the door and swung it open wide, "need to leave. She is pretending. She was just fine before she saw you." Stacy shouted desperately. "After all those years you all bullied her, she can pretend all she wants," Adam taunted. Stacy opened her mouth to argue, but Rebecca, seeing the writing on the wall, grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the exit. She said nothing as she walked out, but her silence was heavy with defeat. She knew she'd lost control over Adam, and more than that, she knew she couldn't risk him changing his mind about that fortune. The second the door slammed shut behind them, Naomi finally let her guard down. She stood up to peek through the window, her face lighting up with glee as she watched Rebecca and Stacy drive away. The satisfaction on her face was impossible to hide. She was all smiles. Naomi's face was glowing with a smile she couldn't seem to wipe off. Never in her wildest dreams had she thought Adam would stand up for her like that, not after all the years of silence and indifference. But today he had. He had defended her fiercely, making her feel valuable in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. She was still basking in that warmth when she turned around and immediately froze. Adam was standing there, arms crossed, his eyes locked onto her with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. The smile slid off her face so fast it was almost comical. She glanced around, looking for an escape, any escape, because she could tell he'd caught her. Her mind raced, and before she could think it through, she did the only thing that came to her in the moment. She burst into tears. Again. Adam's brows lifted slightly, his lips twitching as he fought back a smile. He wasn't fooled, not even a little, but instead of calling her out, he played along. With a soft chuckle, he crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her, rocking her gently like a child. "It's okay, Naomi," he whispered soothingly, rubbing her back. "I'm here. Everything's fine." Naomi kept up her dramatic sobbing, until suddenly her body stiffened in his arms. The change was so sudden that Adam felt it instantly. He pulled back, his eyes scanning her face. "Naomi? What's wrong?" he asked, his voice sharp with concern. But Naomi wasn't looking at him. Her wide eyes had dropped to her legs. Adam followed her gaze, and his breath caught when he saw the slow trickle of water running down her legs. They stared at it for a beat too long. Then Naomi looked back up at him, and when their eyes met, the realization hit them both at once. Naomi let out a loud, ear-piercing shriek. "Adam!" she cried, her face a mask of panic. Adam, equally shaken, jumped into action. Okay, just stay calm," he stammered, already moving toward their bedroom. "I'll be right back. Don't move. Don't leave me," Naomi wailed, tears streaming down her face. But Adam was already gone, and back in seconds, dragging a huge duffel bag behind him. "I got the bag," he announced breathlessly. "What bag?" Naomi started, but there was no time. Adam was already ushering her toward the door, practically carrying her to the taxi. When they finally burst through the hospital doors, everything moved fast. A doctor quickly arrived and started checking Naomi over while Adam answered a flood of questions, his voice strained and rushed. Then the doctor turned to Naomi. "Are you feeling any pain? Backaches? Contractions?" he asked gently. Naomi's sobs slowed. The question hung in the air as her brain seemed to finally catch up with everything happening. She blinked, her sniffles fading. After a long, awkward pause, she glanced at Adam, her face confused. "Actually, I don't feel anything," she said slowly, her voice almost sheepish. "Not even a little pain." The room went silent. The doctor nodded thoughtfully. "It happens sometimes. Your water breaks early, but labor contractions might take some time to start. We'll need to keep you here for observation. Your labor could begin in a few hours." Later, in their private hospital room, the tension finally broke. Naomi and Adam burst into laughter, the absurdity of the day catching up with them. They were both still so wired, the fear and drama of it all still fresh, but now, it just seemed ridiculous. "I cannot believe you," Adam teased, wiping his eyes. "You had me thinking we were about to deliver this baby in the car." Naomi giggled, covering her face. "I thought I was dying," she laughed. "And you ran off like a madman. What was that about?" "I was getting the baby bag," Adam said defensively, nodding toward the huge duffel bag in the corner. Naomi's laughter died down as curiosity took over. "What baby bag?" Adam shrugged like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "The bag I packed weeks ago. It has everything the baby might need: clothes, diapers, wipes, blankets, the essentials, and some clothes for you." Naomi stared at him, her mouth falling open. A wave of emotions hit her all at once: gratitude, embarrassment, and a deep, warm affection. She hadn't even thought to pack a baby bag. To be fair, she had bought a few baby things months ago, but she'd completely forgotten about them. Lately, her brain had been so empty, and if she was honest, she'd been relying entirely on Adam for weeks now. Clearing her throat, she tried to sound casual. Where did you get the money to buy all that stuff?" she asked, her eyes narrowing slightly. Adam just smiled, that soft, calm smile she was beginning to recognize as his way of telling her not to worry. "And this room," she pressed on, gesturing around the spacious, luxurious VIP suite. "This is a private hospital room, Adam. This hospital is already expensive, but this?" She raised an eyebrow. "How did you even afford this?" His eyes softened as he reached over, taking her hand in his. "Don't you worry about all that," he said gently. "I'm very capable of taking care of you, both of you." And the way he said it, so steady, so sure, she didn't ask any more questions. Hours later, Naomi's contractions eventually started, and the labor was nothing short of brutal. Hours stretched on, each one more exhausting than the last. But through it all, Adam was there every second of the way. He held her hand when the pain became unbearable, whispered words of encouragement when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, and wiped away her tears with a tenderness that melted every last wall she'd built around herself. And then, finally, their son came into the world, a beautiful, healthy baby boy. The moment Adam saw him, his emotions overwhelmed him. Tears filled his eyes as he held their tiny baby in his arms, his heart swelling with a kind of love and purpose he'd never felt before. This little life, the one he'd changed everything for before even meeting, was finally here. And it felt so right. He'd walked away from a life of wealth and power for this, and standing there in that hospital room, cradling his newborn son, he knew without a shadow of a doubt that it was the best decision he had ever made. When Naomi is discharged from the hospital, they leave as a complete family. The two people who had rushed in so frantically now walk out with one more beautiful little human. They couldn't be happier. Naomi carries their baby in her arms while Adam follows behind, lugging their bags. The warm afternoon sun kisses their skin as they step outside. "Wait here, let me get the car," Adam says, giving her a quick smile before hurrying toward the parking lot. Naomi frowns slightly, confused. She'd assumed he had already called a taxi, but with a baby in her arms, all she can do now is wait. A sleek, fancy car rolls to a smooth stop right in front of her, its polished surface gleaming in the sunlight. Naomi barely spares it a glance, her eyes scanning the lot for Adam. But when the driver's door opens, her heart nearly stops. Adam steps out. He looks completely at ease as he walks around the car and opens the passenger door with a small, confident smile. "Your ride, ma'am," he teases, motioning for her to get in. Naomi just stares at him, too stunned to form words. When she finally finds her voice, it's shaky. "Adam, I mean, it's not that I'm surprised to see you driving a car like this, but where did you get it? Did you borrow it just to take us home?" She hesitates, her heart pounding. She desperately hopes this car isn't from the people she thinks it might be from. "Don't worry about that," Adam says smoothly, helping her into the car with gentle care. "Let's get you two home." As he settles into the driver's seat, he glances at her with a mischievous smile. "I have a surprise for you." Naomi raises a brow. "What is it?" He just chuckles. "It's a surprise, Naomi." She falls silent after that, her mind spinning with unease. She isn't sure if she'll like whatever the surprise is. A few minutes into the drive, Naomi starts noticing something strange. The route Adam takes isn't the one that leads to their small house. Her anxiety flares, but she tries to stay calm. They're still within the city. That's a relief, but the unfamiliar roads keep her on edge. Then it becomes clear. Adam drives into a gated residential estate, and Naomi's heart sinks. She isn't naive. She knows what this means. When Adam finally pulls up in front of a stunning mansion, Naomi's breath catches. The house is breathtaking, the kind most people only see in magazines. The grand design, the manicured lawn, the towering entrance, it's the kind of place anyone would dream of. Any other woman would be overjoyed, dancing around and singing praises, especially after safely delivering their baby and then coming home to a place like this. But not Naomi. She's confused. First, the luxury car. Now this? It doesn't add up. Adam notices her hesitation immediately. "Don't you like the house?" he asks softly. "If you're not comfortable here, we can go back to your old place, no problem." "No, it's not that," Naomi replies quickly. "The house is beautiful. I love the curb appeal. I'm sure it's just as gorgeous inside." She pauses, her voice turning more cautious. "But the car and now this house. Adam, where did you get the money for all of this?" Worry tightens her chest. She remembers those emails she'd seen, the high-profile job offers Adam had been turning down. Maybe he finally accepted one. Jobs like that often come with benefits, like a car and a house. But then another, darker possibility creeps into her mind. Maybe he took money from the Millers. The thought makes her stomach churn. She wants nothing to do with that family. Their influence over Adam has always scared her. She glances at him nervously. After everything they've been through, she still doesn't fully understand where they stand. Technically, they're still married, but the only reason Adam hadn't divorced her was because of the baby. Now that she'd given birth, what happens next? Everything they've shared so far revolved around her pregnancy. Now, without that bond holding them together, she's not sure what they are to each other. Naomi wants to ask him, to know if she still matters to him. But fear keeps her quiet. What if the answer isn't what she hopes for? Adam seems to sense her unease. He reaches over and takes her hand. "Listen," he says gently. "I didn't buy the house outright. I have some good friends in high places who help me out. I'll be paying for it in installments. But it's ours, Naomi." His eyes soften. "I promise you, this house is just for us." Naomi wants to believe him. She really does. But her doubt lingers. "It must be expensive," she whispers. "How will you afford it? You don't even have a job." Adam's lips curl into a playful smile. "Not to brag," he says, his voice light, "but I happen to be a very intelligent person." He winks. "We could always go back to our old house if you'd prefer. I actually liked it there." His words spark an unexpected flutter in her stomach. Memories of their time in that little house flash through her mind, most of them filled with her bossing him around, pushing him away. And yet, Adam had stayed. He'd cared for her, even when she gave him every reason not to. Now, he's standing here, offering her the life she'd always dreamed of. A home of their own. No more Millers. Just her, Adam, and their baby, maybe even more children in the future. For the first time, Naomi allows herself to smile. "The house is perfect," she says softly, her eyes shining. "I can't wait to see inside." It turns out the house isn't the only surprise Adam has prepared. When Naomi steps into their new home, she finds a beautiful nursery waiting for their son. The room is perfect, painted in soft shades of blue, giving it a calm and cozy feel. Cute little cloud and star decals dance across the walls, and a fluffy blue rug lies in the center of the room. A white crib with blue bedding sits against one side, and shelves filled with colorful toys and neatly arranged baby books line the other. A comfortable rocking chair rests near the window, the perfect spot for late-night cuddles. Naomi stands there, overwhelmed. She feels like a terrible mother. She hadn't even thought about preparing a nursery for their child. Had she really been so distracted and out of touch? But everything seems to fall into place after this. Without any big discussions about love or feelings, their relationship just happens. They slip into it naturally. A happy, peaceful home with a mother, father, and son. The topic of divorce is never brought up again. Naomi no longer keeps her guard up or fights against Adam's care. Instead, she meets his love with her own. She starts helping around the house, cooking his favorite meals, and doing thoughtful little things, gestures that speak louder than words. The warmth between them grows stronger every day, turning their house into a real home. As the baby slowly settles into a routine and Naomi finds her rhythm, Adam finally has time to focus on his business. The project he's been quietly building over the past few months takes off quickly, attracting investors with ease. Adam has a solid reputation in the business world, and it shows. A few months after their son's birth, Adam's company is officially up and running and thriving. Meanwhile, the Millers' empire begins to crumble. Without Adam holding the company together, their lack of business knowledge becomes painfully obvious. Instead of hiring experienced professionals, they choose to run things on their own, and it's not working. Competitors quickly overpower them, and their sales plummet at an alarming rate. But while the Millers' failure spreads panic through their family, it only strengthens Adam's reputation. His departure and their downfall highlight just how capable he truly is, and more people place their trust in his new business. For the first time in a long while, Adam is happy. He works on his own terms now, free from the suffocating life he left behind. He no longer drowns himself in alcohol to escape his misery. When his workday ends, he comes home to warmth, to a loving wife and their beautiful son. He comes home to laughter and soft baby giggles, to Naomi's gentle smile and the love shining in her eyes. He comes home to a family, a real family. Naomi finally has the life she always dreamed of. The house is filled with love, and the fears she once held fade into the background. But some people seem determined to remind her of those fears. One afternoon, while Naomi is home alone with her son, which has become a regular occurrence since Adam got more involved in growing his business, there's a loud, impatient banging on the door. When she opens it, she finds Mabel and Stacy standing there. Stacy steps forward first, her eyes scanning the house with a smug look. Well, looks like everything's going great for you, huh? A son, a beautiful house, and Adam's doing so well too. She sighs dramatically. I always knew he was meant for greatness. He was the smartest in class, at every level. Even if the Millers hadn't adopted him, he would have risen from nothing. A very intelligent man. That's why I fell in love with him. Stacy's voice takes on a dreamy tone, her eyes far away. Naomi's stomach twists uncomfortably. I really thought we'd end up together, Stacy continues, her voice soft and wistful. We were perfect for each other. And then you came along. You two got married, and I thought that was the end of it. Her expression sharpens, her eyes glinting with something cold. But then I realized I still had a chance. Because Adam never loved you. Mabel bursts into laughter, the sound cruel and synchronized with Stacy's own amusement. Naomi's body goes cold. She stands frozen in place, their words slicing through her like a knife. She hears them laughing, but she can't move. Her heart pounds painfully in her chest because, deep down, she knows there's truth in what they're saying. Oh, look. She's quiet now, Mabel sneers. Are you surprised? Did you really think my brother loved you? Come on, you seriously couldn't tell? Adam never even looked at you twice before the marriage. The only reason he went through with it was out of respect for our grandfather. Naomi's throat tightens painfully, but the words keep coming. Exactly, Stacy adds, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Adam was adopted, which means he's never known his biological family. And because of that, he's always had issues. He's spent his whole life wondering if there's someone out there who truly loves him, a parent, a sibling, anyone. And when he found out the baby you were carrying was his, well, it makes sense, doesn't it? He wasn't following you, Naomi. He was following his child. Stacy steps closer, her eyes dancing with cruel delight. Do you know what that means? She whispers. It means Adam would be with any woman who carried his child. You're nothing special. Stacy trails her hand slowly over her stomach, her smile widening as she watches Naomi's face crumble. What if I got pregnant with his child, huh? What would happen then? Naomi can't breathe. The ache in her throat burns, and the weight on her chest feels suffocating. The room seems to spin around her, but she stays rooted in place, silent, hurting, and completely overwhelmed. I want you to think about it, Stacy sneers. If I get pregnant right now, do you really think Adam would choose someone like you over me? Just take a good look at me. Girl, you're nothing special. She laughs and Mabel joins in. You're so shameless, Mabel mocks. How dare you sit here and pretend my brother is head over heels in love with you? He's only with you out of obligation. And now you're playing happy family, like you belong here. It's pathetic. Through their cruel rant, Naomi sits quietly, her heart pounding in her chest. She doesn't even notice when Adam walks in. He arrives so suddenly, she hadn't heard the door open. Stacy and Mabel had gone to his office earlier, trying to persuade him to listen to them, and, of course, they failed. Adam had sent them away, without a second thought. Though Mabel is his adoptive sister, they've never been close. While he spent his childhood buried in books and schoolwork, she was out partying and living recklessly. Their personalities never aligned, and even now, there's a distance between them. Still, Adam cares for the Millers to some extent, but only as far as his patience allows. Rebecca keeps trying to reach out, hoping to change his mind and bring him back into the family fold, but Adam has made his stance clear. Until they accept his life and choices, they remain shut out. After sending Stacy and Mabel away from his office, Adam couldn't shake a bad feeling. He knew they wouldn't travel all this way just to talk to him, and knowing how they used to bully Naomi, he grew more anxious. He called her several times, but she didn't pick up. That's when panic set in, and he rushed home. The guilt of never protecting her from them weighed heavily on him, and he wasn't about to let them hurt her again. When he walks into the house and sees Naomi's pale, stricken face, his worst fears are confirmed. Stacy and Mabel are still there, and Naomi looks completely shattered. When I sent you two out of my office, Adam says, his voice cold and furious, that didn't mean I wanted you to come here and disturb my family. Get out, and don't ever let me see you here again. Brother, be honest with her, Mabel shouts, desperation in her voice. Tell her the truth. You don't love her. You don't even want to be with her. Adam's eyes darken with rage. Mabel, take your friend and leave.
Now.
You don't want to see the other side of me. And don't you dare push me. Leave. His voice is low and dangerous, his glare sharp enough to cut. The second the door slams shut behind them, Adam rushes to Naomi's side. Naomi, listen to me. Don't believe anything they said. They're bitter and cruel. Whatever they told you, it's all lies. Trust me, he pleads, his voice soft and urgent. But when Naomi looks up at him, her eyes are empty and distant. I don't think they lied, she whispers. They said you love your son so much that you'd do anything for him. Adam freezes. Those words don't sound like the poison Stacy and Mabel usually spew. They said you'd do anything for your child. Naomi continues, her voice trembling. Anything, including being with a woman you do not love, just because they are the mother of your child. The silence stretches between them, and Adam says nothing. His hesitation is answer enough, and it breaks Naomi a little more. She blinks rapidly, trying to hold back her tears. It's not your fault, she whispers painfully. I fell in love on my own. You never misled me, not until I got pregnant. You've been sweet and caring, but how can I know it's not just because I'm the mother of your son? Adam's heart twists painfully at her words. Tell me the truth, Adam, she says, her voice cracking. If I hadn't been carrying your child, would you have signed the divorce papers? He watches her for a long moment before answering, and when he does, his voice is low and honest. Yes. I would have signed them. Naomi's world shatters. The pain is sharp and immediate, her heart breaking in ways she can't even put into words. Desperate to escape, she rises, ready to run, to find somewhere she can cry in peace and try to piece herself back together. But Adam grabs her gently, stopping her before she can leave. Naomi, please, he begs. Let me explain. She struggles against his hold, but his grip is firm. I know I failed you as a husband, he says, his voice thick with regret. I never did anything for you. I knew how my family treated you, and I did nothing. I didn't deserve you, and I knew it. When I saw you pregnant, I thought it had finally happened, that you'd found someone who would treat you right. I just wanted to free you from a marriage that was nothing but an obligation. But when I found out the child was mine, I didn't care about anything else. I was willing to do whatever it took to be that man for you, the one who would stand up for you and take care of you. But Naomi shakes her head, tears streaming down her face. Don't lie to me. You didn't do it for me, you did it for your child. It was never about me. Her voice breaks, and her chest aches with the weight of it all. And though she feels guilty for being jealous of her own son, a part of her still aches to be loved. Doesn't she deserve that too? Think about it, Naomi, Adam says softly. I was a lousy partner, I admit that. But I never cheated on you. No matter what Stacy told you, I never accepted her, even when my mother kept pushing her at me. And you know what else? I never asked you for a divorce. Even before I knew the child was mine, I couldn't bring myself to let you go. I didn't understand it then, but I knew I wasn't willing to lose you. Naomi looks into his eyes, her heart pounding. And for the first time, she wonders if there's more to his feelings than she ever dared to believe. I can't deny that the child played a big role in opening my eyes and making me realize what really matters, Adam says softly. But I feel like it was just the final push I needed, the push to break free and finally try my best to earn a place in your life. And trust me, Naomi, the moments I've spent with you these past few months have been the best days of my life. He takes a shaky breath, his eyes full of emotion. Naomi, I love you. I'm truly, deeply in love with you. Naomi had imagined hearing those words from him for as long as she could remember. But now that it's finally happening, she can't feel it. Mabel and Stacy's cruel words echo in her mind. They'd said she was nothing special to him, just the mother of his child. And any woman could fill that role, couldn't they? Overwhelmed, Naomi closes herself off in their bedroom. She just needs time to clear her head. Meanwhile, Adam can't bring himself to go back to work. His thoughts keep circling around their relationship. The truth is, they barely know each other. They went from an arranged marriage where they ignored each other for 3 years straight to nearly getting divorced, and now they're parents. He understands why Naomi feels unloved. He's never really shown her true affection, and most of their recent interactions have revolved around their son. And with his busy work schedule, he hasn't made time for her the way he should have. They never even dated. He never courted her. They skipped that entire part of their relationship. But it's not too late, is it? A soft knock on the door wakes Naomi from her restless sleep. She doesn't really want to talk to Adam right now, but technically, this is his room too. She can't keep avoiding him. When she opens the door, he's standing there, his mood far too bright compared to hers. Why does he look so happy? Didn't they just have an argument? Does he really think her concerns are a joke? Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you, Adam says gently. but I thought a little fresh air might help. Would you like to go for a walk with me? Naomi isn't in the mood for a walk. They can't just ignore the problem hanging between them. I really can't go anywhere right now, she says quietly, still feeling groggy. You need to go back to work, and the baby's still asleep. Maybe next time. I'm not going back to work, Adam says with a soft smile. And the baby woke up hours ago. He's well-fed and happy. Hours ago? Naomi's eyes widen. How long had she been asleep? She thought she'd only been lying down for a few minutes. I'll go get him ready so we can all go out, she offers, already stepping forward. But Adam gently takes her hand, stopping her. There's no need for that, he says with a small, playful grin. This time, it's just going to be the two of us. Naomi blinks, confused. Where would they leave their son? But just then, she spots their baby down the hallway, giggling happily in Mariah's arms. Mariah, you're here. Naomi cheers, smiling despite herself. Yes, madam, Mariah replies warmly. And I promise your son is in the best hands. Now go, enjoy your day. Suddenly feeling lighter, Naomi kisses her son's forehead before heading back to get ready. The day starts off awkwardly between them, the weight of their earlier conversation still hanging in the air. But slowly, the tension eases as they lose themselves in the day's activities. A peaceful stroll through the park, where the fresh air and quiet surroundings let them talk openly. A picnic by the lake, filled with laughter and lighthearted teasing as they share their favorite foods. A fun bike ride, where Adam keeps pretending to race her and then lets her win, making her laugh more than she has in weeks. An art gallery visit, where they admire the paintings and playfully debate their interpretations. An evening at the amusement park, where they ride the Ferris wheel, eat cotton candy, and hold hands like a couple on their first date. By the time the sun sets, the sadness that clouded their morning has completely lifted. And that's just the beginning. Adam makes sure to balance his time, carving out special moments for his son for family time and for just the two of them. On their Just Us days, he takes her on thoughtful, romantic dates. On quiet nights at home, he listens to her, really listens, and makes her feel heard and seen. And little by little, the walls around Naomi's heart start to crumble. He makes her feel loved. He makes her realize she's special, that she has a place in his heart no one else could ever fill. For Naomi, the transformation feels nothing short of miraculous. The man she once feared only stayed because of their child has gone out of his way, time and again, to show her that she matters just as much. He loves her, truly, deeply, and completely. And after 3 years of being an ignored, unloved wife, the life they've built now feels like a reward for every tear she's shed and every silent night she's endured. It was worth it. Every bit of it was worth it. Because at long last, they've found true love and a family in each other.